Welcome to week 7 of International Marketing. This week we'll be looking at sales forecasts. Learning outcomes to prepare an international marketing plan for a consumer products company, and forecasting sales volume, revenue, and budget requirements for successful product launches. So when we're estimating market demand, often reliable historical data isn't available to us for international markets that we're entering. We either don't have access to the market research, or it's not as sophisticated a market as we're used to dealing with here in Canada and the United States and Europe. But you're still required by senior managers in your company to develop a forecast of demand for the market so that they can produce product in advance. So how do you go about developing a forecast when the data is so poor? Well, there's a few ways that you can do it. When you've got an innovative product, a new product that you're bringing on the market, you're first to market, you can base your forecast on research. Often as you go into those new markets, you have some money, you can spend it on marketing research. It's going to depend, your quality is going to depend on the quality of that research and the firms that you're working with to help you do that work. In some fields, consumers themselves don't know what products they're going to need, or businesses don't know what products they'll need. And so you'll go to experts. This was the case in many of the biologicals, vaccines, and pharmaceutical products that I worked in, where people couldn't give you a reliable picture of how much vaccine they would manufacture, how many people would pay for vaccine, or whether governments would pay for vaccine. And so we used experts to help us estimate the size of the market and how quickly we could grow it. Another way that you could use to predict demand was what's referred to as analogy. This comes from literature often, the idea that assuming that the demand for a product develops in one market much the same way as it does in another market that has similar level of economic development. And so there's an example, quite an old example now, from the personal computer diffusion rate. And you can see what happened. The top line is the United States. So personal computers, how they spread through the country. And then you can see below it lines for Japan and Germany. And if you notice, the demand in Japan and Germany developed about 5 years after the United States, but it more or less followed on a similar course, almost parallel to it. And so you could predict in the future that it would be, say, 5 or 6 years before Japan or Germany would have a similar level of market penetration as the United States. But when you looked at companies like Brazil and China, at that time they had absolutely no resemblance to the market in the United States. And so in that case, you couldn't use something like analogy where you compare one market to another. And it's because the level of technical development, the income levels in those countries weren't at all the same. And so you couldn't use it to help you predict demand. Now, very often you're entering markets, though, not with innovative products, but with Me Too products. So they may even be mature markets that you're entering. In some ways, that's what you're doing in Country Manager. You're entering markets where there are already many toothpastes already being sold. So how then do you estimate demand? Well, there's trend analysis. Now, it's useful to predict the overall growth or decline of the total market for all competitors. And often then you'll have to make estimates on, when you see how big the total market's going to be, what your market share is going to be in that market. And we often use ratios to help us make those forecasts. So as an example here, you can estimate your market demand based on when you enter a market. When you're the first to enter the market, of course, the market is open all to you. But as time passes, other competitors come into the market. So how do we break it down? Well, in this particular assumption, this spreadsheet that was set up, the assumptions are that the mature market will arrive after 5 years of development. So it'll grow to $10 million in this case. It'll take 5 years to get there. It'll grow by $2 million a year. One new competitor will enter every year. And then there will be a breakdown of what market share people have. The first competitor to enter will continue through all of this time to have the leading market share. But each year, their share of the market drops from 100% to 67% to 50%. And in the meantime, the other competitors that come in take part of that market. Now, no market is ever perfectly balanced like this, but this can be very helpful for us when we're measuring or predicting market demand. So when we're forced to decide or make forecasts about what market share we'll be able to achieve, we have to consider things like, when did we enter the market? Were we first, second, third, or fourth? What's our value proposition, quality and price? What's the effectiveness of our distributors? How unique are the products that we have in the market? Are they simply commodities? Are they viewed in the market as commodities? Or can we do something to differentiate ourselves? And you're certainly doing that with your toothpaste products now. So a kind of rule of thumb that we have when we talk about entering markets is that the first to market will command the largest market share with undifferentiated products. It gets hold of the best distributors, it gets share of mind of consumers, and so it maintains its number one position in the market. Companies that come to the market late, fifth or later, rarely achieve above a 10% market share. And it often takes 3 to 5 years for a company like that to reach its maximum market share. Now, we're going to take this kind of thinking about how do we develop forecasts, and we're going to use the Captain Fab case study from Econestoga to pursue that further. I was originally going to have us work as a large group and then in breakout rooms, but because of the circumstances this week, I'm going to have you work on it on your own, but I'm going to have a short video to show you how I would approach it. And so here's the process. You're going to download the document from Econestoga, week 7, which is the Business Analysis 5, Captain Fab case. You'll watch the video that I prepared about the case. You'll then complete the pro forma income statements for France and the United States on the spreadsheet provided. I'm going to provide the actual sales for Canada and a forecast for the United Kingdom, the UK. You're then going to use the same process to develop those other two forecasts. And then you're going to answer a final question on the sheet. What country would you choose to export Captain Fab to? And you'll explain your answer. As usual, you're going to hand in the completed spreadsheet to the assignment folder by 6 p.m. today. Just because I don't want to lose you on that assignment and not have you thinking ahead, of course you know that the Student Success Week is next week and there won't be a class. But before you go on Student Success Week, you have a culture quiz to finish. So that's Culture Quiz 5, it's 1%. You're going to be using this really terrific online program, a country comparator tool. And this will really just be you getting your first taste of it, but we'll be using it much more extensively after the Student Success Week. Now, when you get back from Student Success Week, period 3 of the country manager simulation is going to start. So you're going to have to make your decisions between now and then for period 2. And you need to advance the simulation before our class, right after the Student Success Week. Our topic is going to be international sales management, and we'll have a business case related to Amazon International. And of course, you'll have a culture unit then again due on Friday of that first week back. So for now, I want you to download the document from Econestoga, week 5, and then watch the video that I prepared about the case.